Well, as we count down the days on the calendar to the year 2024, we still got a few weeks left here in 2023. Christmas ahead of us, New Year's, etc. And we're watching the weather as we roll through the month of December. Things looking a little undecember like, though, in the U.S. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to take a close look at South American weather. Joining us now, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Eric, great to have you back on the show. Hope you had a good weekend. We should start with the U.S. weather real quick. I know a lot of severe weather through the mid-South here this past weekend, and really just weather that's not typical for December in many locations, Eric.
Yeah, but it's something that's actually becoming a bit more typical. And what I mean by that is there was some great research done back in 2020 and early 2021 that pointed to pretty sizable expansion of Tornado Alley more toward the mid-South and in the whole of the Mississippi Valley. So we've seen it shift over the last 40 to 45 years. And remember, you're close enough to the Gulf of Mexico that we can extract very mild, unstable air masses any time of year. Yeah, it was a rough day watching that on Saturday, just watching it unfold. I mean, on Friday, when I did my most recent forecast, for the weekend, I said, hey, we've got a pretty large area from maybe eastern Texas all the way to Kentucky that has the risk of severe storms. But then as Saturday unfolded, it was pretty nasty. So at least 25 tornadoes that we know of right now, numerous fatalities, as you've seen. But I think one thing that's not getting talked a lot about was there's a lot of damaging hail as well. And so these storms kind of packed a punch, and they finished over in the east last night. Even parts of North and South Carolina got some severe weather as well. And then the same system's dumping several inches of snow in New England today. So up in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So can we look at a positive side of it? This area needed rain. There's no doubt about it. But is it enough to kind of fill the ailing Mississippi? It's not. Mississippi this morning was about 6.5 feet below low stage. And even with all the heavy rain that came through, the soil's going to take it up first. So yeah, that was a rough weekend to watch. There is a break coming for the Mid-South. I hate to say that, though. I'd rather keep the flow going. And I don't want the severe weather, but I need to keep the flow going to correct the longer standing drought issues. But most of the next 10 days, we're not going to see much more precip in the Mid-South. It's going to start in Texas and New Mexico and go south of you and then get down into the Southeast United States. That's our next big system to watch.
Yeah, it was definitely a rough weekend in the Mid-South for folks like me who live down here. So tough thing to watch. We'll move forward though from here. I want to stay just real quick before we spend the bulk of our time on South America. The weather pattern for this week ahead in the U.S. There's not a lot of precipitation in it. It looked like here, Eric. It looks pretty mild for December standards.
Yeah, and part of that's Alaska. So Alaska's taking on these deep troughs of low pressure. And if I'm telling you about that in Alaska, it's not here. You want Alaska to be ridged out, hot, and if it is, then we are having fun in the United States, but it's the opposite right now. And the coldest air in the northern hemisphere is in Russia. And we don't expect it to get here before the year ends. We probably will spend the remainder of December with very mild conditions across North America. That's going to ruin a lot of folks' chances for like a white Christmas or anything like that. So yeah, the pattern is quite unfavorable. It's not there. We are watching something kind of fun on our end, and that is that cold air that's in Russia is kind of paired up with very warm air that's in Southeast Asia. So what's that mean? That means the jet's going to just come screaming out of Japan, and it may line from Japan to California. On Christmas morning, it may be from Japan to California at an average speed of about 190 miles an hour. And that's not the right pattern to give us a big system in the central US, but it is the right pattern to hit California with quite a bit of precipitation. So it's kind of funny, but honestly, from now until Christmas, I'll be talking about this extended Pacific jet nearly the whole time. It'll be something to watch.
Well, let's turn our attention to South America as we focus on a few of the weather features impacting us in North America. I know we continue to keep our eye on Brazil and Argentina. How are things going down there for their growing season? Get me up to speed on Brazil first. I know we've seen some wet season showers, but forecasts continuing to kind of flip between models here, it looked like to me. Get us up to speed. What are you seeing in Brazil this week?
Yeah, so this is our big story, right? So if you think back over the last, 3 to 4 weeks, we've had a few extremely hot episodes in central and northern Brazil. We've had drier weeks. We know that statistically, big section of Mato Grosso, parts of Mato Grosso do Sul, Tocantins, Goiás, Minas Gerais, these areas have had like a top 5 driest, last 3 to 4 weeks when you look at data going back to 1979, and the heat's been on. Now, is there a garden spot? I think there is. I think it's in Mato Grosso do Sul, southern Goiás, through Paraná, and maybe over to parts of Sao Paulo. But then you get south of that and it's too wet. Now, what's the point in me telling you that? This whole time period, the forecasts have been the US model called the GFS has been really dry. The European model, which is, of course, run out of Europe, has been really wet. And reality's been somewhere in between. Well, just this weekend, for the next 2 weeks, the European model just painted probably 95% of Brazil's growing area with drier than average conditions. And the GFS is only about 80% of it, with a little bit of wetter conditions in southern Brazil. Now, if I were in Argentina and I saw these forecasts, I would be like, fantastic, because it's going to rain. It's going to rain in Argentina. Both have it. But here's the question we've got. Every long-range model that looks out there at that last week of the month is projecting that rains move farther to the north and hit the driest areas. If those fail, we are out of time, I think, for this crop to really have a chance to recover for these big production and yield numbers. We're now into January. It's just not there. We know the crop was planted late too, which means that we're just pushing everything in the cold crop calendar farther down. And the discussion is going to have to start soon about safrinha. That's going to go in 3 to 6 weeks late in places. So Brazil has really had some adverse weather this year. And the garden spot is small, and it's right there in the center between the northern growing areas and the southern growing areas, I think, this year.
So it sounds like this next couple of weeks, pretty crucial. Folks are going to have to keep a close eye on what's happening in South America, because if we don't get some of these rains to verify, like you mentioned, it's going to be tough sledding here. It sounds like moving forward in some spots.
Yeah, or no sledding at all, because it's going to be 105 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So no, it's going to be rough. And by the way, just because we're thinking about it, the Panama Canal also not expected to get much rain over the next 10 to 15 days as well. They're running out of time as well. I think these next few weeks are going to be extremely important to the entirety of the pattern, both in North and South America, as we get into headlong at our winter and South America goes into their full growing season.
All right, good stuff. Before we let you go, any other features around the world you are keeping an eye on here this week, Eric?
Yeah, I'm watching Australia. There's a hurricane. Well, don't call them hurricanes. They call them cyclones there. That's going to be hitting Queensland. And in Western Australia, huge dust storm over the weekend, which was interesting to watch. And finally, Europe. Europe is way above average on its snowpack so far this year. I mean, big snow in the Alps and in Germany, getting over to like Poland, Belarus, Ukraine. But even though it's been quite cold as of late, they're going back over mild, and this is going to continue to kind of be an interesting story to watch with respect to energy prices.
All right. Good thoughts. Folks can learn more ag-wx.com, ag-wx.com. You can sign up for Eric Snodgrass's weekly weather newsletter there as well. With that, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Thanks for joining us this week, my friend. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks.